Hey, in this video I'm going to introduce you to some Apex code from a book I read, and what it's going to do is it's going to count the tasks that have been assigned to a contact, and I'm going to show you how to build it, and I'm going to try to explain the code. It's way above my head, but I get the basic concepts, and it's from this book, Learning Salesforce Development with Apex. So Apex is a Salesforce coding language, so in my developer edition for Salesforce, if you don't know how to do that, you could just watch my first Apex video that I uploaded on Christmas. So basically what it does is, for each of your contacts, every time you assign a new task to a contact, it will automatically get updated in this column over here. So I mean, you could kind of make like a contact for yourself, and then anytime you get assigned tasks, you could just check over here, and it actually decrements or increments up based on however many tasks you currently have that haven't been closed out. So you could just, I guess, search for your name, and then you could see how many tasks you have currently assigned to you. So I mean, yeah, so let me just go over to the code. I'm going to open up the developer console, and I'm going to close this out, and I'm going to close this out and close this out. So what you're going to do is you're going to go to New and Apex Trigger, and you can type whatever you want here, and then you're just going to also type in, you're going to select contact, so just like type whatever there, and then select contact, and then submit. And I'm just going to open mine, go to triggers, and the first thing you're going to do is just you're going to make sure that like a before insert. So what this one is going to do, this is the entire code here, is basically it uses a for loop, and then it works with the contact table object, and it uses an alias con. And for the Trigger.new, it basically goes with like the con, and I mean, like yeah, it goes like with the contacts as the table, and then it goes with this column right here, and you just need to create this column on your contacts table if you don't have it. So basically go up here to setup, object manager, and then scroll down to contact object, go to fields and relationships, press new, and then select number, next, and then do what was it called? It's called number of open tasks. You don't have to put any spaces or any underscores, because they get added automatically to the field name. And you don't need the double underscore C, because that gets added as the actual field name for any custom fields that you make. So this is good. Press next. I already made it. So basically press visible, and then you click save. And I'll just do number 2, so you could see all the options. You're going to keep it as whatever, so click visible, press next, and then click save. And then now you'll have a field in your contact object that looks like this. I'll just say number of open tasks, and obviously here's the field name with a double underscore and C. Here's the field name, so this is the field that you reference when you're writing Apex code. So this will, in the contacts table, it'll set the value equal to 0 before an insert happens for a new contact. So now when I'm going to create a new contact and just demonstrate this Apex code that you just created. So you're going to go to new, and I'm just going to make a contact called like me, and I'll give him a number like 87, and I'll click save. So now when I go to my contacts, he has 0 tasks currently. So basically before this record for contacts table was inserted, it made sure that this value for the column was equal to 0. So it automatically makes it 0, and you just need it to be 0 when you're creating a new contact. So now you're going to build out the really complex statement. You're going to go to new, and you're going to select Apex Trigger, and then just name it task trigger with no spaces, and then select the task object and click submit. So I'm going to open mine up right now, and I'm going to open up my task trigger because I already wrote it out. And basically I'll just sit here and scroll really slow, so you could copy this all down or take like a screenshot, because this is all the code right here. Scroll really slowly. Then I'll scroll back up slowly. Alright, so basically what this is working on is, let me just delete out this before insert. So this trigger that you're working with, it has like an after insert operation and a after update operation, and basically you use a switch statement to separate and test if the code is in the insert or in the update operation trigger. So the switch statement here basically use a when and after insert, so it tests if you're in this version of the trigger, and then when after update tests if you're in this version of the trigger. So now I'm just going to like walk through each of the lines of code, and I guess before I walk through the code I'm just going to show it in action, and then I'll walk through the code. So basically this new contact we created has no tasks, so I'm just going to go to tasks, and if you don't see this up here, you go up, click apps, and you could just search for tasks, and you could click it and it'll be up there now. So I'm going to press new and make a new task, and it's going to be a call, and the contact is going to be me. This is like whoever the task is assigned to, and I'm going to click save. So now it says task call was created, so you go to contacts. So obviously now me as a contact, I have one open task. If I click on like tasks again, and I'll just create another task and assign it to me, it'll be like an email, me, save. Now I go to my contacts now. Now I have two open tasks. So basically I'll just go over to my tasks now, and I'll just create another task, be like send letter, me, I'll click save. So for this one, I'm actually just going to mark it as complete. So it says completed. So now I'm still at 2. So you can see like how, I guess you could see how like it doesn't add the task if it is completed. So once you mark it as completed, that means that it's done. So I'm gonna assign it to me, and I'm also gonna assign it to an account. Click save. So I assigned it to Burlington. So let me just check it on the contacts page. I have 3 now. So if I go to accounts, I go to Burlington, and it says like he has an upcoming call due date, upcoming task with me. So I'm gonna click this, and I'm gonna mark it as complete, and then I'm gonna go to my contacts. Now I have 2 tasks, so anytime the task gets marked as complete, if it's assigned to an account or a contact, it'll automatically decrement over here, so you could track like how much work you have to do. So that's, I guess, why that's useful. You could actively track your task as a single column number. And now I'm just going to walk through the code. So open up this, and so a lot of this is like, I don't know, I walk line by line. I wouldn't be able to write it myself, but I can work with like basic stuff, and I mean the concepts kind of make sense. So basically you make an after insert after update trigger up here, and this is the name of the trigger that you created, and this is the object you're working with, which is task. You select that when you created the trigger, and you use the switch to differentiate between the 2 triggers, after insert and after update. So here's when after insert, and basically with this part, like a set is an unordered collection of unique items, and they can't have duplicates. So here you create a new set, and it's with the variable ContactIds, and it's to hold no duplicates. And basically you're going to loop through the tasks and with over here. So for task T is the alias for task table, you're going to do a new trigger and like a new context trigger, Trigger.new, and this is going to loop, this for loop is going to test criteria. It tests if it's so it tests if the task, the who ID, is not equal to null, and this double ampersand means and, so both these criteria have to be true. It also converts the value of the task who ID to a string because it's an integer initially, because it's 003, and then you test if it starts with, and then in this single quote, you test if it equals 003. And according to the book, 003 is the who ID is the prefix for all the contacts. So that's how you could differentiate between contacts and accounts, because the account is 0.00 or 001. Because who ID is a polymorphic field that contains an ID for either a contact or a lead, and each S object in Salesforce has a prefix of 3 characters: 001 account and 003 for a contact. In my web browser, I saw this kind of chart that makes no sense to me, really. I mean, every single table object has an ID field that automatically gets pulled whenever you do a select SQL statement, and I guess it's how you can relate all the different accounts while you're pulling records. So let me go back to here. So let's see, this contacts.add references, if you double click something, you can see where the variable appears elsewhere in the code. So basically it adds, like whenever you're working with that's like the add method. So whenever you're working with like a set, you can basically reference the variable dot add method, and then you could add whatever values you're working with to that set. So basically you add in the tasks dot the who ID to this set if they meet this criteria. So now you have like all those tasks in the ContactIds set, and basically with the map, what you do is so the key is the record ID and the value is the record instance. So this is the key, and basically you work with the variable for the map is called ContactMap, and you equals new map, and then you have the ID and the contact, and here you basically fill it with a query, because you could do like queries with your maps. Like normally, like you can use like a, I don't know, like the map is still a difficult concept for me. I'll have to like really look into it, but I mean, so the key is the record ID and the value is the record instance. We pass a query to the constructor, which is this open parentheses and this close parentheses, and to create the map, and we loop through the tasks again over here. So this SQL query it's kind of similar to, if you watch my SQL video, you could kind of get the grasp of how the SQL language is. So in Salesforce, it's called SOQL, SOQL. So this selects the ID, which it automatically does anyway if you don't type in ID. And then it also selects the field number of open tasks from the table contact. And then where is like filter criteria, where the ID. And this is a binding something, and I don't know what that actually means. So where it's in the contact IDs, so wherever I guess the map ID matches like the contact IDs from where the ID matches the IDs you got from and assigned to the set contact IDs, then you want to loop through the tasks, and if a ContactMap contains the key like if it contains the who ID value, we retrieve the record and increment the number of open tasks to be like we increment it to be up by +1. This increments the number of tasks by 1. And then basically we have like this DML statement, which updates the contact map .values, and basically the .values method retrieves the list from the map. So I have no idea what that means, but basically this contains key. It checks whether a key exists within a map. It's a method, and it takes in the key value as a parameter and returns a boolean indicating whether map contains the key. So if the contact map, which is the variable for the map that we create, if it contains the task who ID, then we use a get to retrieve the task.who ID and the number of open tasks, and we increment it up by 1, and we update the contact map list with the values. And then after update, so now we're in the second part of the switch statement. We had like the when after insert, so now it's when after update. And I guess for this part, it's set up the same way. We have a set called ContactIds, and we create a new set. We loop for the task object with the alias t, and so if the task is closed, which which is true on the new instance, and the trigger, the old instance of it for the task.id is closed, and this exclamation point means not. So the if the new instance is closed and the old instance isn't closed, because this tests if it is closed, but then this exclamation point is the opposite, so it's the not operator. So this criteria, we're looping if the task is closed, and if the task, the new instance of it is closed, and then the old instance of it isn't closed, and the task who ID doesn't equal null, and the string starts with 003, same as before, except in this case we're using the old map context for the old instance. And because I mean, when you're working with Apex, like the record, you could retrieve like the before change and then the after change, like so you could have like the value before and the value after. That concept still I need to work on a little bit, for, I guess, switching between all the different, like, all the different, like, triggers and the timing of the triggers and, like, how they all, like, link together, and then also, like, where you could, like, retrieve records that are deleted. And I guess that'll probably make more sense as I get farther into the book. But I mean, the author kind of introduces each of the concepts, and then he just scales it up, like, really, and just gives, like, really complex examples, but they work. And so, and then I guess over here, like, you have, like, the contact map. So this does the same thing as this map up there, and then over here you do, like, a loop, and, like, I guess this map ID part that gathers all the contacts and it places them into a map. And then, so for the contact table, this loops through the contacts and it sets the open number of tasks so that we could set the value from, like, the aggregate query if a value is returned. So I guess this just, in the contacts table, it sets the value of open task equal to 0. And I don't know. And then let's see, like, the aggregate, like, we run the aggregate query and loop through the results. So basically, like, we retrieve the correct contact from our contact map using the who ID on the AR instance. I guess probably about, like, here. And then we set the number of open tasks to be the total, which this part is just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. I guess it just gets the total from the aggregate result of this query, where you're selecting the who ID, the count ID, total, like, you count it, which is different than any of the other SQL queries. So basically, the count ID, what that does is, let me see if I can find the notes on that. Like, yeah, count, it returns the number of records meeting a defined filter criteria, and if we're grouping by a particular field. So I guess this counts however many records are for the count ID, and it selects the field who ID, and the count ID is known as total, which we reference down here, from the task object where is closed equals false. So if, like, the new instance is open and the who ID and the contact IDs you group by the who ID, yeah, this I don't even know. And yeah, basically that's this code here, and you don't even have to execute it or anything. Basically, anytime you just create a new contact, I'll just create a new contact, and I'll just put mobile phone, click save, and I go to contacts. So it automatically has 0 tasks, and then anytime you assign a task to it, I'll just do a task, like call, go to contacts. Now this person has a task. So it's a quick way to, I guess, work between the different objects in Salesforce and use SOQL to group by, and also, like, provide a value in an account after a certain action. So the after insert is after a task is inserted or created, then this whole code executes, and then you have, like, the after update function. So yeah, thank you for watching my video. It's pretty complex, and I mean, this book is really difficult after about, like, 100 pages, and the author doesn't really he doesn't really, like, break down the simple concepts. Like he does initially, but I don't know.